Welcome to the Midnight Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Easton Bennett, alongside my fellow co-host, Tyler Sinden. We are both entrepreneurs who are learning, growing, and building our own businesses. Our goal is to share experience and knowledge to help you grow and become a successful entrepreneur. Before we get started, if you have any questions or things you'd like us to cover, you can email us at themidnightentrepreneur@gmail.com, and we will talk about it right here on this very show. If you haven't already, share the podcast with a friend or a foe so Tyler can quit his job and do this full time. Strap in. Tyler, what's going on?
Not too much, Easton. How you doing? How's the actual trip gone since you've actually been to New York?
The actual trip was fantastic for the people that got teased a little bit last week. It was really good. Didn't do a whole lot. Got there late Friday night and left early Sunday morning. So I really only had Saturday, and I went to bed Saturday at like 8 o'clock. But the trip was really good.
Just like me.
Yep, can't complain. Is cool. We were shooting a speech at Columbia University, and the people that were putting on the entrepreneurship conference actually wanted my contact information. So I don't know if they want to do more videos.
There you go.
That'd be pretty exciting to fly out and shoot some stuff for Columbia. But even if it doesn't turn into anything, it's a good contact to have.
Yeah. Do you have their contact information?
I have one of the ladies' emails, and then the gentleman I the gentleman I met, I don't have his contact information, but I sent over my contact information. I actually didn't have any business cards in my wallet. I sent over my contact information via email when I got back. So
maybe just shooting out an email, and then I don't know what they were doing there, but I know one thing that we were talking about in our day, it gets talked a lot about, is just follow-up emails and just thanking them. And whether that's Beyond Meat or Columbia, maybe you just talk a little bit about the university and say how much you liked it. And it was a pleasure meeting you, and maybe looking forward to meeting you in the future. I think that would help stand out.
It's a good idea. I might do a little follow-up and say, hey, just wanted to say you did an awesome job putting that entrepreneurship conference together. I felt super welcomed. It was a good time.
Exactly. And thanks for having me.
Have me back more would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that I don't know when I started doing that or when I first heard about that, but that's one thing that I always try and do. Like even after like maybe just hanging out with someone that I haven't seen in a while, I'll shoot them a text maybe like a day later or that night, if it's been a while, be like, appreciate you hanging out with me. It was good to catch up, and nice hanging out with you. Just something short, and just to catch back up to with them and thank them for the time.
Nice little sweet text, sweet email. Make the first person feel good about themselves. That does go a long way.
Or even a handwritten note.
I actually got a handwritten note from a client the other day, and it was very nice. It said, hey, thanks for helping out with this event we put together and filming it. Happy that you're part of our team. So yeah, it goes a long way. We're throwing out value left and right at the top of the show here, Tyler.
Did you ever get a handwritten note from a temporary guest?
Temporary guest? What do you mean?
Did I give you one?
I don't know. Oh, I think you did. Yeah, I think you did. You left the note here.
I gave you I think some energy drinks and energy bars for sure.
Yep.
I remember I did it with when I stayed with Eddie and his buddy, and I think also with Liz when I stayed there. So if I didn't do it with you, I'm sorry, man.
You didn't send it now. But no, I do remember that because I was gone and Shayna had to leave early, and she said, Tyler left you a note and some gifts. So I was like, oh, sick. So I got up right away and looked at it. So do appreciate that, Tyler. But if you want to ship me some more energy drinks, feel free. Actually, I'm off the energy drink game, so don't send me any.
Same.
Don't send me any.
Yeah, I am too. I'm trying to be as clean as possible. I got a little bit of pre-workout left, but I'm only taking like 1 to 2 scoops a week. The rest I'm just drinking coffee. But you drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, I still have a coffee every day, but I haven't had an energy drink I'll have them here and there. I think the last one I had was probably a month ago, but I think that's better than having one once a day or every other day or whatever it is.
For sure. Is there a reason you stopped? Just the chemicals in it, or caffeine? Or
just scared me always having it. No, cost I don't care. But I'm always like, God, I know it's not good to drink these. I keep doing it. So finally I was like, screw it, I'm not doing it. And it really started from the beginning of the year. That was one of my goals, is to drink less energy drinks. So
more water,
less pop. I'm doing less pop too. More soup. I'm into soup lately, but we're getting a little off topic. Let's get into that'll be on our food podcast if you guys want to subscribe to the Patreon. Tyler, what do you got? What do you got rocking? Some news since last week for us.
I just got this email right before we started, and it was a really cool little win that I got from my client. And she just shared that she got a new client. She was just saying that the Google ads are working, showed up number 1. So it's just really nice to hear. And then I sent it to you, and I always share the one GIF where it's just Jordan Belfort as the Wolf of Wall Street, where he's banging the microphone on his head.
Yep.
I always share that. I was like, I want to send this to her, but you got to be professional.
It's always good when you have the services that you're providing actually in work and you can see it and they're happy with it. It's always exciting to get that. So yeah, you do have to keep it a little bit professional. Can't be sending the let's fucking go. Or I'm not fucking leaving or whatever it is GIF, but I do like it.
Yeah. I also just, now that I think about it, I don't know if they came in through the Google ad, but I just had my weekly meeting with the other client on Monday. And he was saying that he just got a couple of good wheel loader. That's one of his products that he has, rentals. So I don't know if they did come in through the Google ads, but if they did, that's awesome, because he said they were long-term projects, and that's kind of what he's aiming for. That's what he prefers. So I don't know if that did come in, but if it did, that's a couple nice wins I got this week. But yeah, other than that, not too much. I don't know. We had a good mastermind call the other week and just talked a lot about vision and my vision and trying to figure out where that map is. And I think that's one thing that I struggle with a lot, but I think I'm just tunnel vision right now with the Ironman training. And that's kind of where my vision's at right now.
Which is okay. We talked during the mastermind, which you guys obviously were not involved in, but having that vision after the mastermind, we'll talk more about it and see where we can picture ourselves being by the end of the year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that looks like, and then really go for a goal. But right now, goal is to finish the Ironman, which is okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was also just looking at quotes, and it just kind of reminded me like how far we've come. And I was thinking about this a little bit because, like, especially with the podcast, we've come so far where like we're approaching 2 years actually. Now that I think about it, we're about 17-ish weeks out from 2 years. So that's pretty, or maybe a little bit more, 19 weeks. So, I mean, I went basically a little across America trip, and that didn't stop us, but almost every single week we've done it. But we've come so far because I used to be upstairs in my bedroom, and it's funny when I look back at the other ones, I'm like, damn, I was a child. And then whenever I shave and there's like random, like November, it's like, oh, there's November, trying to go out the mow. And it's like, man, I changed so much.
Yeah, it is crazy. I've been in multiple different sets. This is the last time I'll be in this goofy set before I move back up to the regular one. But I was taking some senior pictures for my sister last night, and that room is torn to shreds, and I haven't cleaned it up yet. But yeah, it is crazy, the growth that we have. And speaking of growth, great transition, great segue, Tyler. I was texting you about this. Went and looked at office space, studio space this afternoon. Went super well. One of the gentlemen that I work with, and that helps out with a lot of the website stuff I do, has a space, and it's like 2,000 square feet, and he really doesn't have the need for all of that space. So we went there. He's open to collaborating a little bit where we're both using the space, and it went really well. I can't complain. I'm really contemplating actually moving in there. So,
oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
How big's 2,000 square feet?
The upstairs of my house is 1,500.
So just the upstairs is?
Yep. So that puts it into perspective.
It's decent size.
Yeah. In the area, there's 5 offices, a bathroom, and then a giant area in the middle.
Okay.
So I mean, there's plenty of space, and there's a little podcast controller type room too. But yeah, it's a hefty amount of space. A lot of it's unused right now. He says I just have way too much space, and he'd be willing for me to go in there with him. Obviously, Spencer moving in. We're going to be talking about training today, me training an editor, but me and the editor moving in there, moving a lot of our work into that area would be super nice. So I'm excited about that. Maybe we can have a conversation off air about what your thoughts and everything are on that transition. And maybe we can do a more in-depth podcast episode down the road about, finding your first office space or whatever it looks like. But I would like some of your feedback, Tyler.
Sure thing. Anything else going on with you? in your world?
Only other thing is content's rolling. Got the YouTube video. I was going to post it before we filmed this episode, but got a little bit pushed back because you kind of threw the episode on me, which is totally okay. But got home, started setting up for the podcast right away. So I'll post that after this. YouTube videos are finally rolling out, and the social media content has been going strong. Got to post that after that as well. But really getting the content out there and getting the personal brand rocking and rolling.
So you mentioned this to me before. Little question. Are you going to be vlogging? Did you vlog your little trip today to the office to check it out? Because that would have been a perfect time to start it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was driving there about starting it, and I didn't want to spring it on the guy that I was showing up to. I probably should have given him a heads up, like, hey, you cool if I film it? I'm going to, film the space and everything. But I decided not to go against it. But if I move forward with it, I'm going to. But yeah, we did have a conversation about starting the vlog to get the personal brand going. And I used to do it back in the day. If you can go find those archives, and I think bring it back would be good.
Monday to Monday,
man.
Is that what they were called? I wasn't sure. I didn't even watch it. I was like, yeah. I'm pretty sure this is what it is.
Yep, Monday to Monday.
I used to watch a few of them.
Yeah, I'd vlog just Monday to Monday, whatever that week looked like, and then I would post it. And again, they weren't great, but it's kind of cool to go back and look on and be like, oh, that's what I was doing that day. Or it's crazy the transformation that you have for sure.
I watched like the first 5 seconds of the video I sent you, and the audio is just like so bad. It's like, you've come a long way, Easton.
Yep, it was buns. 100%. But yeah, that's in
echo reverb.
Yeah, that's in the works too. Going to be doing some vlogging. Hopefully, I want to make sure I get my feet under me with the actual content. I don't want to add too much to my plate. We're potentially moving into an office space after today, adding a full-time editor, now working on all the social content, working on personal branding, the business branding. So I just want to make sure that I don't overload myself where things are falling through the cracks. So I just have to strategically go through it.
Maybe it's just coming up with a list and making sure that nothing does fall through.
Checking it twice.
Processes. Yeah. Making sure you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a list, and we're doing it good, but obviously things to take into consideration. VidLead.
Get back on Asana. VidLead. Yeah. You did say that.
Yep.
How similar is it?
Not very. I mean, it's great for. It's not ideal for. If you're talking about like your own personal daily tasks. I don't have it set up that way. But all my client work is just like Asana, where you can set it up in a boards and see where they're at in certain places. You can add tasks for yourself depending on where they're at. You can add tasks for team members. And then really my Asana or my accountability to make sure I'm doing what I need to do is my calendar. I just go by the calendar, make sure I go through and put things on the calendar based on what needs to get done, and then just live by that.
Gotcha.
Live by the calendar, die by the calendar.
Big calendar guy over here.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anything else you want to update us on, Tyler? Otherwise, we'll hop into this week's topic.
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. So mentioned a little bit there at the top. We're going to be talking about training. I'm currently going through the process of training my first ever employee, which is definitely a learning curve, and I've learned a lot while doing it. Tyler's had to train some people at work as well, so he's got a little bit of experience doing it, and we wanted to talk about what that looks like. There are hopefully some things you can learn and take away from this episode that we had to maybe go through the hard way. So Tyler, I'll maybe start with my experience first. Just to give a little bit of a setup of my experience, I'm hiring Spencer, who's going to be a full-time video editor. And when I originally started, I just threw him to the wolves. I pretty much said, hey, here's how you edit videos. Figure it out. Let's see how you do. And it was very naive of me to think that I could just throw it to someone and they'd figure it out. And I learned that quickly, that his skills weren't exactly what I thought they were going to be, but I really had no way of judging what his skills should have been. I shouldn't have thought that he was going to become an expert. I was comparing it to myself, who's been video editing for 5 years, and throwing him into day one. I was a little discouraged, but I really shouldn't have been. So that was one of the biggest things I learned, is that you can't just throw people to the wolves when you hire someone new or bring someone onto the team. You have to give them a little bit of guidance and a little bit of direction. And that's, what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I think another good way to, maybe towards the end, we can talk a little bit about it, is just, I don't know if you've been trained, but the experience of being trained as well, because I think that's another good way to look at it as well, as opposed to just one way street. Because when you do see it in the other person's eyes, or putting yourself in the other person's shoes, I think that's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, I agree. And I haven't been trained a ton. I got trained at the golf course when I was working there, but other than that, hasn't been a ton of training. But I could add my my thoughts in there. I see you're typing on our notes, so I'll add my thoughts as we go. But let's maybe talk about that at the end. Tyler, do you want to start off with your experience training people and what you've learned, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll touch on it. I think you maybe will have more. I don't know. We'll see. But I feel like for myself, I haven't been the best at training. And I think if the person that you're training ends up failing, that's on you, because you didn't train them to be as good as they possibly could have been. And for me, the way I struggle is because I struggle giving feedback because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. And even though when you look at it from their point of view and putting yourself in their shoes, they got to be willing to accept feedback. They got to be willing to say, hey, what did I do right? Hey, what did I do wrong? So they're coming to you to want to know and learn. If they aren't wanting to come and learn more, ask you questions, they're probably not the right fit in the first place. So they should be coming to you to want to learn more. So that's one area that I struggle with, because it's like, hey, maybe it's just phrasing it properly. You don't want to say, hey, this is shit. You want to give them a couple options, be like, hey, I really like what you did here, but maybe you could try it out this way, or maybe there's like these other ways that you could possibly do, and then maybe see, it's like, what do you think is best at the same time? Because I know a lot of times when I've been trained and when I'm training is putting it back on the other person, because like I might come to you with a question and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And then it's like, let's flip it back and be like, what do you think of it? And then it's like, okay, I think of this. And then it's like, okay, I think that's a good idea. Or if it's not like a great idea, it's like, have you ever thought about doing it this way or something like that? So it's like trying to flip it back on them to make them to start think. I hate when that happens to me, because it's like, I'm coming to you for a reason, because I want to know what you think. And that's happened to me so many times where they just flip it back on me. And it's like,
yeah.
Do you ever get that where it's like, I feel like with like negotiations, you read the books, so you like know the tactics and all this stuff when it's like being done on you, and it's like extreme ownership. Like we just read that book at work, and it's funny because it's like everyone's trying to accept responsibility, and it's like, no, I wanted to, no, that's my fault. Oh no, that's on me. No, that's on me. No, and it's like, you always see like, it's really cool at the same time when you do see that, because you got the right people that are there with you trying to be on the same mission as you. So I think that's a little bit where my experience has been. At the end of the day, it's trying to benefit both you and them, because you're trying to give them feedback to get them to be as good as possible and get them basically to where you're at, or feed them all your knowledge. So it's like, you want them to be able to surpass you at the end of the day, because it's like, I want to put all my experience, my knowledge into you. They might be younger than you. If they're not, maybe it's just trying to basically try and combine it and get them to pass you. So that's been a little bit of where I've been at.
It's like glorified parenting almost. If you can compare, I'm sure it's super similar. I don't have any kids, but I'm sure it's very similar to parenting. You know, a lot of stuff you said, Tyler, is if they're making the same mistake over and over and over again, it's on you. That means you're not training well enough, or, I mean, there could be times when you do have a dud of an employee, but a lot of the times when the mistakes are being made or things aren't happening the way you want them to, it's because of the training. So going in there with a strict, hey, this is how we want it done. That's one thing I've learned when training Spencer, is that I see you have on the notes here, Tyler, not to just tell them this is how you do it, or do this or do that. I think in the beginning, that's really important to say, hey, this is what you're going to be doing. This is the way that it gets done. And the step process that I like to think about is to teach, do, and then review. So teach the person how to do it, just like you would do it. Walk them through the process. This is how it works. And then let them do it. And let them do it a few times. It's all about reps. Do it as many times as you can. Get that muscle memory down. And then after you've taught it, after they do it, then you review it. And you can sit down, you can go through it together, and you can have that conversation like Tyler said, where it is, well, why did you do it this way? Hear them out. Maybe they have a different idea of why you would do it. Or, why did you decide to do that instead of doing this? Then you can have those conversations and go back to the teaching phase and teach them how to do it. But I do think it is important in the beginning to teach them exactly how to do it or the way that you want it done. One of the issues that I ran into is I would say, sometimes I do this, or I like to do it this way. Instead of I like to do it this way, or, sometimes we do it this way, tell them this is how it's done, right? This is how we do it. Me and you, this is how we're going to do it. This is the format we're going to do it in. This is the structure. This is the organization. Instead of leaving it up in the air like, oh, this is how I do it, but, do it however you want. Because for me, it came back to, well, now I'm frustrated because it's not done the way I do it. So just that slight wording shift allows you to get the work done that the way you want it to be done.
It sets the standard. It sets the standard where that's what you do at work. But at the same time, I think you're getting into like the nitty gritty type of it, where it's like they might have their own way of maybe editing a project, but if it delivers the same result, then it's like, okay, that's fine. So I think that's where it's like, there could be like nuances to it where it's like, okay, this is like the end goal. This is how maybe you can like record a video and be like, okay, this is the process. And then you can either take this process, run with it, or you can take this process and find your own ways to make it more efficient. Because I know and you also mentioned like at the end of it, once they say finish the project or finish whatever it is, you go back and review it. Another thing that we would do at work a lot is just send looms and record it and be like, and then that would be the feedback. So it's like, instead of both people having to spend time meeting and not really wasting time, but it's more of an investment, but getting together where it's just say recording a quick loom and being like, okay, this is what I do like, this is what I don't like, this is what you can change, this is how we can do it here, or whatever, X, Y, and Z. And then you can just send that loom to them, then they can watch it on 2X, so they can go blaze right through it. So that's just another option as well.
For sure. And the review is the biggest, what I think is maybe one of the biggest things is you need to review it, because you might think you set them on the right path, and by the end of it, they've gone on a different path and you're expecting them to be over here. So having that review where you can course correct and get them back and say, hey, I love what you're doing here, but here are a couple changes I'd make so it fits a little bit better on what we're looking for, is super important. And you want to put yourself in their shoes. You want to make sure that one of the issues I was having is I assumed that, hey, this is how I do it, so this is how it's going to get done. But if you put yourself in their shoes, if we use the editing example, Spencer's going into it not knowing anything. So he's just going off on a tangent of what his brain thinks, where if I don't assume that that's what he's going for, then it's really hard to get him into the ballpark of where I want him to be. I think that was a little ass worded around there, but that's okay.
Yeah. I guess so. So I didn't, I guess like typically, so you're hiring this guy straight from scratch is what you're saying.
Yeah. He doesn't really have any experience, which is definitely a different hire than if you were to hire someone with experience. But a lot of times you hire, kids out of college or kids out of school or whatever it is that don't have any experience.
Yeah. I guess it just depends, because I know where we're at with Builder Funnel. They're hiring people that have done what we're trying to do already. So they're basically coming in, and it's an example that Alex Hormozy says or gives a lot. It's like having a sous chef where you bring them in. It's like, this is what's on the menu, and it takes them like a day to say, learn how we do it here, compared to someone that's coming in fresh, that's never done it, and taken 2 months to learn how to cook it, grill it the right way, do everything, and train them up to get to that point where we do want them to be at. So I guess it is quite a bit of a different experience going from scratch. I think that gives you a nice, fresh, clean slate where you're able to train them and do this, like do everything exactly how you want it. So it's like you're coming out with someone extremely fresh, and it's like you're able to mold that person. Whereas someone else that already has all those habits and everything in them, it's a little bit different because they already have habits. They already have ways of doing things. So it's tough to change and break that way of doing things.
Yeah. And I'm only speaking from my experience. I haven't had to train anybody that is strictly knows what they're already doing and they're not coming from scratch. So I can only speak from people coming from scratch, but it is nice to be able to teach them, hey, this is the way that we do it here. This is the way that you're going to do it. And you don't have to battle through some of those already preconceived ideas that they have. The nice thing I've learned when going through this process to make this process easier is when you are training from scratch is come up with KPOs. So key performance objectives of, hey, here's the exact steps I need to make sure that you master. So going, day one, you're going to learn exactly how to organize all the footage, how to import the footage, how to make sure the structure looks good. Day two, maybe you're learning how to sift through footage. Day three, you're learning on how to pick a music track, and you're almost creating a mini course for them. So those are the key performance objectives. And I created a checklist of, okay, here are the things that we need to learn. So that helps a ton rather than, okay, we're going to teach you how to edit, and then you just fly by the seat of your pants. Actually come up with a structured process and a way to teach that person how to edit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been zoning out.
It's all right. Another checklist, if we're going on the checklist topic here, but one thing I learned is, we take them from point A to point B. Tyler can't even hold it together over there. Point A to point B of, okay, we need to take the project from 0 to 100. What does 100 look like? A lot of times I would be like, okay, go ahead and finish the project. Well, he didn't know what a finished project looked like. So creating a checklist of, okay, when you hand this project off to me, here's what it should look like. You should be able to check off this. Okay, we have an audio track. We have the audio editing done. We have the B-roll added. We have the interviews added. We have the interviews cut. Whatever that looks like, create the checklist that after every task they finish, go through the checklist. Have I completed all these things to consider this project finished? And maybe that only works for people coming from scratch. I don't know if there's something similar that you guys do.
I do like the checklist idea. At work, this one girl, she was fairly new. She kept bringing up the checklist idea. And for me, because I've been there so long, it's like, yeah, I don't really know about that. But I think bringing someone on and them learning, it really helps them to build that habit, build that muscle where they're going through and making sure they're getting everything done. Because I know there's a lot of little tasks that I would often forget when I was just starting out. And potentially the checklist would have been good to be able to be like, okay, I did that, I didn't do that. Okay, let's go back and do that. Because I remember there was quite a few times that there was one thing that I kept forgetting quite a few times. So I think like having the checklist is really good. So you're able to just remember and know exactly what you need to do. And then you actually know what is a finished project look like. And then it helps build that muscle memory, that discipline, those habits. And once you got that stuff built up, then you don't really need the checklist later on.
For sure. And it's all about managing your expectations. That checklist is just going to help you guys get to the same point. The person starting over here, you're over here. You need to get to the same point, which is the finished project. And you should both be expecting those to look similar. If you're expecting it to look one way and it comes out completely different, that's where there's some disconnect. So being totally transparent about the process really helps a ton of, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for. Here's a checklist. Here's all the things that once you have these checked off, it should be pretty ballpark to what we're looking for.
How long do you think it's going to take you to train Spencer up?
I think he's pretty close to being there.
And how long has he been?
He's been working for probably 3 weeks. So I think another month he would be to the point where I'm comfortable to push him a project and say, okay, get this project to me at 80%.
Okay.
So, which is exciting.
Yeah. I think that's just the difference between bringing someone new in versus that sous chef, where it's like that sous chef would probably be done by now. And then it's just like, it's completely different dynamic. So I know you're obviously you're getting what you can, and it's just like kind of a different probably training process at the same time. And
a sous chef costs more money than a line cook.
Exactly. Yeah. I know there was one thing that you did mention earlier about, line cook, that you did mention about mistakes, and that could be coming back to you. At the same time, it might not come back to you in your training, because it's like one thing that Alex talks about or says, what is it? There's like a specific term. It's like, whatever it is, it's it's not like intelligence. It's okay, but the point of it is
hard to reference something when you don't know what it is, Tyler.
So it's like when you do a behavior and you get like an outcome that you don't like and you don't change your behavior, that means you didn't learn. It's something like that. So it's like learning. Maybe it's like learning, his definition of learning. So if you do that behavior, say you touch a pan, it's hot, you never touch it again, you learned that behavior. So it's like a new behavior that you're actually learning and adopting to it. So it's like training can be an expense as well, because they might make mistakes. It might cost money. It might cost $5. It might cost $50,000. So it could be an expensive mistake, but as long as they learn that new behavior to not do that in the future, I think that's like one of the big things to focus on, because like you said, it could come back on the trainer, but at the same time, if they keep touching the hot pan and they don't keep learning their lesson, then
you got
that's on them. Yeah, exactly. You got to throw them to the curb.
And you should expect there are going to be some mistakes and failures along the way when you are training someone. They're not going to take your teachings and be perfectly executed and trained right away. Some might. Those are awesome. Those are probably going to be your star employees, but there is going to take some working and some molding and mending to make sure that, okay, we learned that mistake. Here's why we don't import footage that way, because this is what happens. So now next time we do it, let's fix it. But if, again, like you said, the hot pan, if they keep importing footage the same way and it keeps making the same mistake, then it's like, okay, that's on you. You need to fix this. One thing I've learned that helps a ton is asking along the process the whole time, is there anything you have questions about? Can I help you in any way? Are there any issues you keep running into? Are you unsure why this keeps happening? Or do you keep running into this problem? Whatever it might be, I think asking a ton of questions helps a ton in speeding up the process as well.
Are you trying to direct or frame the questions because they keep making a certain mistake? So you're not trying to like call them out on it. So it's more of a soft landing where it's like maybe they keep making the same mistake, and then you say, do you have any questions maybe about exporting or whatever it might be?
I don't, because if there is something where an issue needs to be addressed, instead of asking the question, I'll just be very transparent and say, okay, you're doing great. Always lead with the positive. One thing we need to work on is, boom, we need to do this. Positive sandwich.
That bad boy. Yeah. The positive, negative, positive.
Yep, exactly. Throw it in the middle. Yeah, this is great. This sucks, but also this is cool too. But yeah.
You're doing absolutely brutal here.
Yeah. And one example is, when I sift through interviews, you're cutting through 10 interviews. When I'm picking all the ones that, we're cutting out the actual questions where you can hear the interviewer, I like to listen to the questions and then mark the ones that are good. So these are potential ones that I'm actually going to use for the video. And that is one issue we went through where I was watching him cut through interviews and he wasn't marking anything. And I'm like, well, how do you know which ones is going to be good when you go to put the video together? So just having that conversation of, super simple fix, go through, make sure you mark the ones that sound good, so it makes your job easier down the road.
Yeah. And at the same time, maybe he has his own process that maybe is more efficient than what you currently do, or maybe it's something that could be beneficial for the business. And
that's where the why comes in. A lot of times if you ask, why did you do it that way? They might say, well, I did it because of this. And then you're learning something. So something you have on your notes here, Tyler, when you are training someone else, it does give you a chance to get better. It gives you a chance to learn and level up from your previous skills. And maybe they can teach you something along the way.
Yeah, that's... a while back when we were always talking about like coming up with courses and stuff like that, I think at the same time, like this is one reason why I do think it's beneficial to do that, because it forces you to level up. Because if you say you create a course and you got a whole bunch of people in there expecting to learn from you, that forces you to, like, you have that added pressure on you to be able to deliver value to these people, because they're signing up from this course from you to be trained by you. So it's like, now you have this person that's there and it's like, okay, now I got to be able to train them. It's like, okay, I got to make sure that I'm on top of my game. So you constantly level yourself up. Maybe you read some new articles, you watch some new videos, or you're just trying to stay up with trends and stuff like that. So I think at the same time, it just forces you to stay at the top of your game. Yeah,
it's a win-win situation. They're getting better. Maybe you're getting better. If you're not getting better, you should probably look at getting better. But training something, it is a very different experience that you go through. And until you go through it, I don't think you fully understand it. And just letting take your ego out of it, right? pretend that you guys are both on square one. Put yourself in their shoes, like I said earlier, and learn again with them. Explain it like you're just learning it. Because that was one of the issues I had. I've been doing it for 6 years. I know the thing like the back of my hand. So when I explain something, I shouldn't get frustrated that they don't know it. Don't let it get in my head. So, put yourself in the same exact position they are and then learn together.
Yeah. And you were obviously in that same spot too at one point in your career where you didn't know anything. And maybe it's a little bit different because now you actually have that, he has that person in person, where you would have probably gone on YouTube, or you would have just spent a lot more time trying to learn on your own, where you're trying to speed up their learning curve.
Yeah. And it helps doing the one-on-one. That definitely, you caught the it helps doing the one-on-one where you can coach them through it. Whereas sometimes when you watch videos, it sometimes makes sense. Sometimes it's a little foggy or unclear. But if you're there with them, training them, saying, hey, this is how you do it, they have direct access to asking you questions. It helps a ton.
Yeah. So at the same, you said it the one time before, and then I was thinking about it, and then I was like, I'm wondering if he's going to say it again. So you did. But going off of like ego is like just thinking about it at the same time, because they might come back with other questions, or they might have other thoughts, and it's like you can't let your ego in the way, because it's like you might think your way is the only way that it can possibly be done, and you can't really be thinking that. So it's like you got to be willing to accept new things, because they might come in, even someone that's brand new, they might come in with some fresh new ideas where it's like, oh, I never really thought about it that way. And then you got to be able to have that, I don't know, is it humbleness? I don't know.
Humility.
Where you're willing, humility, where you're willing to change or learn or get their perspective, because because they're coming in so fresh, they might think something's a lot easier than what you've been doing. And now at this point in your career, you've been doing it for so long. Now it's just really easy, but maybe somewhere else is actually, or doing it a different way is actually really easy. So I think, and especially when they do come back with a lot of questions, I think just being able to come up with, like, if you don't know the answer, just being willing to say, that's a great question. I'm going to try and do some research, and I'll potentially come back and hopefully answer that question for you. So it's like not always trying to have an answer. And if you do know the answer, you can share it. But like, if you don't, you got to be able to accept your ego being like challenged, because like, I think at the same time, like, you're both being challenged at this point.
Transparency. Just be transparent and open. That helps process not only in training, but in business in general. Tyler, what experiences do you have from being trained, if any?
Yeah, it was when I was just starting at Builder Funnel. I would just basically ask a lot of questions. You obviously got to be willing to accept feedback, because you accept a lot of feedback potentially, depending on how crap you are at your job. If you're brand new, you might be receiving a lot more feedback. So it's like, I always hate receiving feedback, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, this is just helping me out. So it's like, there's a small sliver of a second where it's like, oh, that mother. And then it's like, all of a sudden, then it's like, okay, I'll do it, get it done, learning something new. Just always asking a lot of questions as well. So if you are training someone, expect a lot of questions. For me, I was just constantly asking questions like, hey, what'd you think of this one? Or trying to be like, ask for feedback is another thing that I was like always doing. And I would receive a lot of Loom videos, and there might be a lot of training videos as well, where it's like training meetings where you're getting a call together, and it's just like going over like, this is what I would do, this is how I would do it, and then maybe it's going over some of your stuff. It's like, okay, this is good, that's good. So it's just trying to figure out a lot of that types of stuff. And yeah, it was a lot of meetings, a lot of videos, and just a lot of asking for feedback.
You should know that when you go into it, most of the people that are training you, they're not giving you feedback or telling you to do it, or you did it wrong, or do it this way out of animosity. They're just trying to help you. So never take that feedback personal, that, oh, they're out to get me, or they don't like how I'm doing it. They're just generally trying to help you, and they're just trying to give advice. So never take that personal.
It's their job.
I had to go through that too when I was getting revisions from clients here and there. It's like, oh, they don't like the video. But a lot of times the feedback you get is going to make the product or service or whatever you're doing a lot better than if they didn't give you the feedback.
Yeah, that happened to me. before, and we talked a little bit about it, where I did something for my client's website and he gave me feedback on it. And at the end of the day, after I implemented his feedback, it looked a lot better than what I gave him. So, feedbacks, and like at the same time, like we mentioned this earlier, this is a process to improve both of our skills, not just the person being trained. So yeah, it's something that's necessary.
If you are the person being trained, don't be afraid to say that as well about how you like to be trained. Maybe there's like, hey, I'd rather you show me before you just tell me how to do it. Or I'm a visual learner, so just show me how to do it and I can pick up on it a lot easier. So don't be afraid to speak about how you're best going to be trained, and it's going to help on both ends.
I agree.
Tyler, got anything else on training?
No. As of right now, that's about all my experience I have. Can't really talk anymore about it. So maybe in the future, we'll be training more. I think at the same time, for you, it's good, since you're just starting, is painting the vision of the company so he can buy into your company a little bit more. So I don't... This might be a whole other topic that we kind of left out, but especially because you're the business owner, he's got to be like a cultural fit as well within BCM, and he's got to like relay or resemble the values of BCM, and just kind of going off of that, where you need to start him out and set the standard, because like he's fresh. So
I think we could do a full episode on company culture or something like that. But it's harder. I don't know if we can add it into training, because I have done little to none of that. I haven't.
Yeah,
been like,
no,
this
that's
is
why
our
I was
values.
just laughing, because that's why I was just laughing, because like for me, I can't really speak on that much because of where I'm currently at, where it's just me and it's like an extremely small company and there's like no culture built there. So it's like a little bit tough there for me.
I'm a firm believer. Some companies, like the company culture, it's talked about, but I don't know if it's really like, this is how we do it, this is why. It's just, it almost forms on its own.
A bit. I'll say this, like Builder Funnel is getting really good at building out their culture and implementing it. And like over the past year or two, it's come a long way. Like before, there was like very little culture, and there was like cancerous people that were hired there, and they were kind of tearing down the company and the culture and the values. They didn't really resemble them. So once we kind of got rid of a lot of the cancerous people, it did really start to take off and benefit. And it's like, okay, I can see like a lot of the culture that's being implemented and transferred through everyone.
I feel like the culture is just like common sense, like make good decisions though. Like hire good people that aren't
not really
assholes.
Not really.
Well, how are they implementing a good culture?
I wouldn't say it's not quote unquote good. It's their culture. It's like what separates them from everyone else. And I think the bigger the company, it's tougher to create like a specific culture, because like you look at say Apple or Google, like it's going to be tough to have like a company wide culture that gets passed down from everyone. But with us, like our core values, like no one would actually know what the core values of the company were. And it's like whenever you were called on, it's like what's a core value that we have here, and no one would really know it. But now everyone actually knows it. And what we started doing on our Friday huddles is we started to go through it, and it's like you have to shout someone else out that resembles the core values of the company. So like that helps build that culture where it's like people are understanding what our core values are, what our mission is, and like we're saying our company mission. And then it's like, so it's not like good or right or wrong. It's what the actual company culture is what I would say.
Do a podcast episode on company culture. I don't know how much I could speak to it, but I think it might be a good episode.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more. I mean, we're doing it's really interesting right now what we're doing. We just started implementing it like end of Q4 last year. So like end of December, we just started implementing it, but it's like themes. So it's really interesting, like how we're going through with it. And like for us, I think it's a lot harder for a completely remote company. So I think they're doing a really good job with it, just because like it's 100% remote, because they're obviously a lot easier to say First Form. Everyone that works at First Form, they resemble those values. Like they go the extra mile, they clean up, they do everything. They can see everyone like putting in the extra effort to go that distance. So it's like a lot different being remote. And like I'm starting to see them actually trying to build that company culture, and it's like pretty interesting.
Well, there we go. We got next week's topic idea on the lock.
We'll see.
We won't get too much into any more into that, as this episode is on training, but let's get to this week's business idea, the camera clamp. This is very niche, but I think it would be awesome if a lot of times when we're filming these, well, not a lot of times, every time we film this podcast, my phone is FaceTiming Tyler just left of my camera. And I have to have, right now it's sitting on a garbage can on top of a battery on top of a cinder block. So I have a tripod that I put my phone in, but it would be awesome if there was just an attachment that you could screw onto the side of your camera or clamp onto the side of your camera where the phone is directly even with the camera lens right off to the side of the camera. And you didn't have to have another tripod sitting there or on this makeshift jerry rig, whatever you call this setup here. So that's what I was thinking about.
What if you had the cage, the small rig?
I do have a cage.
And then you can't put like an attachment on the side of it for your phone?
I'm sure you could put a couple different pieces on there that made it work. But if there was something,
jerry rig it?
So for example, my handle for the side of the camera that it would go on, it's got a little lever you pull down and it opens up, and then you put it on the side of the NATO rail and then you close it and it's on there for good. So if you could do the same thing with like a phone mount with that little lever, I think one just hyper designed to fit on the side of a camera rather than something where, I have a phone mount that has to go into a 3.5 millimeter thread that goes onto a screw that goes onto a clamp. I'll buy one tomorrow.
Tomorrow, eh?
Yeah.
How much would you pay for this?
$20.
$20. Yeah, just like a phone case.
If it's small rig though, I mean, grip gear is more expensive. I'd maybe pay $40.
Okay. So about a phone case.
Yeah. I think it's worth it. You could attach it to a phone case. That'd be good too. It's
a very niche product.
Yes. But it has its market. If you film virtual podcasts, this is
probably
for you.
Millions of people out there doing that.
Yeah. But you could even do it, and maybe it is, people attach GoPros to the top of their camera so they can film what they're shooting and then show the shot after. So you could even do that with your phone, maybe, where you just flip it around and then you're recording while you're recording.
Is there not an attachment for that? Because doesn't the GoPro just go on that top piece where the like microphone goes? I don't know. Cold shoe. I've never had that before.
I've never done it, but I think it has a cold shoe mount. Yeah.
So that is the cold shoe thing, the thing that slides in?
Yep, on the top of the camera. But
this they don't have that for phones?
They might. They have cold shoes, but it has to be on the side. Yeah, it has to be on the side. So
yeah.
They might have something out there, but I don't know. I haven't looked because I forgot it's my week for a business idea, and that was the first thing I thought of. And I was setting up for recording.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, Tyler, anything else?
No, that is everything.
That is episode 85 of The Midnight Entrepreneur. If you have any questions you'd like us to cover or answer, email us at themidnightentrepreneur@gmail.com. And if you found value in this content or found this entertaining, share this with a friend or post it on your story. And if you really enjoyed the show, we'd love a rating and a review wherever you're listening. Talk to you guys next week for another episode of The Midnight Entrepreneur.
It's funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different. Prince Caspian.